At the end of the day, I feel that all the people that write for the music press are basically fans of music, and their lives are obviously chiselled by the musical past. So therefore, when I see scathing reviews and horrible things written about people, it does upset me. So I always think of this line, the artist must educate the critic. In many, many instances it isn't true, but I think for those solitary instances when it really is true, I think the line makes perfect sense.
And if you just tuned into the BPFO, we've got Morrissey from the Smiths here. Earlier on, a few moments ago, we were talking about James Dean, and you mentioned his style, and also Oscar Wilde. And it seems to me that if one becomes famous, a lack of being deliberately fashionable visually actually becomes a style. And in your case, I mean, the baggy jeans, the shirt flapping about and not tucked in, and that's your image now.
It's absolutely perfectly true. But you know, when you come into the public eye, regardless of how you dress or what you do, is construed as an image. And this is something that is completely unavoidable. I always really quite consciously made an effort never to have an image. But of course, things don't quite turn out that way.
But I mean, say you got up in the morning and you decided to, among all the banging here, decided to wear a balaclava helmet and gumboots or something. Would you be conscious of the fact that it wouldn't be what your style has now become?
Yes, I think I would be slightly conscious, yes.
Well, I mean, that's a bit far-fetched, but you know what I mean?
I do, yes. Of course. I mean, unavoidably, one does think about these things. And I really do think about now the way people see me. And to some people, many people, it has become quite important. So I'll just try not to upset those people, but I don't want to get caught into a trap, and I don't want to be strangled by flowers or whatever. And it can quite easily happen.
Well, let's talk about another visual aspect of the Smiths, Morrissey. I mean, you're heavily involved in designing the record sleeves and everything.
Yeah.
And you seem to have a very strong interest in movie stars for packaging records. I mean, one example that comes to mind is Terence Stamp on the front of What Difference Does It Make? Well, now, first of all, before we talk about why that had to be changed, what was the idea there?
Well, the idea was just quite entirely selfish. I had if you can hear me.
I can. There's a fierce sort of woodpecker invading the orchestra pit here, man.
Yes. It was entirely selfish. I had the picture for a long time and I really liked it. It seemed to convey this particularly appealing bedsit failure kind of image. These kind of people who think they're poets and they're artists and they live in bedsits and they just remain there forever. And that's exactly what the picture evoked to me. And to me that was quite special and passionate. So, but with all the sleeves, it's entirely selfish. I just use them because I want to. They have some kind of appeal. But most of the pictures I've had for a very long time.
From your own collection?
Yes.
Well, before we talk about some of the other sleeves, there's a heavy woody woodpecker thing there. Before we talk about the other sleeves, I mean, why did you actually have to change the Terence Stamp picture? What sort of legal scams went down there?
It was really quite strange, but suddenly he really didn't want the picture to appear at a time when it was really too late and quite a few thousand had gone out. And so it had to be changed quite dramatically. He asked that the picture be changed for a modern one, which made no sense to me whatsoever.
Right.
And also, without being cruel, but being perfectly blunt, I really thought that he would really quite relish being thrust into, if you like, virtually youth culture.
Yes.
Because I felt that perhaps his career was at the stage where he might need it. But apparently he was really quite stroppy about the whole thing, but he could have been more so. I mean, he could have really taken serious legal action. There was reports in English newspapers that he was suing me personally for extortionate amounts of money, and there were some totally fabricated quotes from me. I don't know where they came from, but it was really quite tragic. At one point, he sent a representative to Liverpool when we were playing there, and they said, if we don't remove the sleeve, we will be sued immediately. So it did get quite serious. It had to be replaced by a picture of me imitating his pose, which I thought was horrible. I thought the sleeve was dreadful. So I'm really quite sad about it.
Well, now, on the album cover, Morrissey, you have a picture of Joe D'Alessandro. I mean, are you a great fan of all the Warhol school?
Not to the smallest degree. And I do feel quite a twinge of sadness now that is what the sleeve is. Not because I've gone off the picture, because I really like it, but I never really wanted to be pinned to the whole Warhol school or whatever. But the picture again was just quite evocative to me and provoking, slightly provoking, not in a terribly dangerous way, although some people will see it that way. And to me, to walk past famous newsagents and record shops and to see it in the window next to other sleeves is really quite gleeful.
Yeah. Well, you've got Rita Tushington on the Sandy Shaw record, her version of Hand in Glove.
Yes.
But then on the latest single, Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, and incidentally, congratulations on being the highest entering the British charts this week.
Thank you.
At number 19. On that sleeve, you've got a picture of a lady whose life, it seems to me, was embraced by a whole bunch of tragedy, Viv Nicholson.
Yes, it's absolutely true. It's quite interesting that this year a film is being made about her in America, and that Bette Midler is playing the role of Viv Nicholson. So it's really quite coincidental that it should happen.
Well, would you be kind enough, Morrissey, to explain the life and times of that lady, Viv Nicholson?
Well, I think it would take several days, but briefly, she is known here for her pools win in 1961. She won the pools, and at the time it was the largest amount that anybody had ever won, largest amount.
What was it?
It was £175,000.
Not bad.
Well, no, I think in those days it was seen as something like, $1 million.
Yeah.
It was completely unspendable. But she proved that it was completely spendable. She spent it incredibly quickly, and throughout the few years that she actually had money, she was totally dogged by tragedy. She went through 4 husbands, and most of them died. And she ended up singing in a nightclub, a strip club, and she was just chased by tragedy throughout these few years. She was never out of the English newspapers for one reason or another. At one point, the headlines of the newspaper were "Viv defies the Pope," because she wanted to open a club in Malta, a strip club, and the Pope had come hot on her heels trying to track her down. So she was always the object of the most colourful and outrageous newspaper nonsense imaginable.
And what's happened to her now?
Now, she still lives in the place where she lived when she won the pools, Castleford in Yorkshire. And she's a little older, but I think she's still, from the recent conversation I had, she still seems quite alive and quite a colourful character. I want to meet her very, very soon.